Welcome to Season 2 with the Market Mystics, where we discuss and redefine markets, wealth, and trading on Earth as it is in heaven. Join us on the journey while we consider new possibilities with special guests who might just challenge a few perspectives. Get ready to dive in deep with your hosts, Joshua and Kim.
We're back.
We're back.
And we're back.
We won't talk about why we paused. So you were talking about the nervous system, and I think you talk about feeling because that's what we tend to associate with feeling. I think about the verse "Be still and know." There's a difference between feeling it. Yeah, it's experiencing it. So with that in mind, here's another question for you. What is the afterlife like? Do we feel? And does God feel? Does God have a nervous system? We talked a little bit about the mind of God.
I think we are God's nervous system.
You think so?
OMG. This is another conversation.
I know. Are all of us nervous system, or are we different parts? Because I certainly don't want to be at the bottom end of the digestive tract.
I have a friend that regularly says that if the body of Christ is a real body, then he's got to be the sphincter because he holds things in, and sometimes when he speaks, it's offensive.
We're clipping that one out.
Well, I guess that kind of answers another question I put down there too, is what is the kingdom? Is it just the body? And concept I struggle with is, are there people outside the body, or are we all the body? Is all humanity the body? Because the concept of children of God,
I'm really going to get kicked out of Christianity. Okay. I know this. I accept it. But I believe that mankind was created in his image, and we are kingdom, and we are meant to be his body. Now, are there parts of the body that aren't functioning?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
Do you see people come in with parts of their bodies that aren't functioning?
Yeah.
It happens.
Right.
And
that would be my thought too.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about how we've experienced the body of Christ as having an autoimmune disorder.
Like that.
Yes.
It's just like we attack ourselves all the time. We attack other people all the time. And that is... So, I mean, I would agree with what Kim said. I tend to think we are all the body. We are all God's creation. We are all sons of God. Some people are less awakened to that reality,
So
and therefore less functioning as that. Because I would say, like, I have a belief that I'm that, but am I fully functioning like that? No, there's a spectrum to how much that is outworked in your life.
Right.
So
how full you are.
Yeah, you bring up a concept I didn't even get written down that I'm glad that got triggered. So we were in our small group thing, and we were watching one on marriage, and I'm like, yeah. And the guy started talking about something. I'm like, that's profound because it fits right within this thing. And he said, you have an expectation and a behavior, and between the two, there's the gap. And you're going to fill that gap with one of two things. Either you assume the worst or you believe the best. And that applies to all relationships. And I think when you believe the best, you're being godly. And when you assume the worst, you're being this part of ourselves, you're being fear, basically. And I think this ties back into, it's interesting. You were talking about Adam, when Adam had the power. And think about now, to a degree, we still have the same power. It's just diluted because all the different people. So when he was in control, I think that's why there was more of this ability to manifest. And now take a simple concept. One person wants one thing and one person wants another, and their energies are going in against each other. So that's not going to create creation. That's going to create destruction and chaos. And so I think it ties into that concept of the body as well. And the reason the body's not healthy is because in between that gap of what I expect out of you and what I see, I put this assuming the worst as opposed to believing the best.
Hmm.
And so we're not unified if we can't have conversation and say, you know, I think this and I believe this and I feel this, because really that's all any of us can ever say.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell me you're right or I'm right. And what's interesting and what triggered me to think about this is when you assume the worst, it's all about you being right.
Right.
Hmm.
And do you want to be right or do you want to be healthy? Because when you believe the best, there isn't that right or wrong. It's just, they're different, and it's
Mhm.
okay.
Right.
Yeah, we've talked about this quite a bit in a kind of a cliche, like we're all part of the body, we all have different
Right.
forms and functions,
Right.
but to some extent there's a lot of truth in that. Like if I'm created to be a hand
Right.
and Kim's created to be a knee and you're created to be an eye or whatever,
Right.
we like if God was telling us something, he would be telling us all something different because we all have to be doing something different.
Oh.
Now, maybe there's an overarching like direction or wholeness because we're all part of a body.
Right.
But like, how dare me go to you and say, well, this is exactly how you're supposed to be. Well, maybe you're not the same part.
Right.
And that it would be wrong for you to try and be the part you're not.
Right.
And I think it's kind of freeing, can be freeing, to take that mentality of like, oh, let me just try and learn how I'm supposed to function.
Right.
Exactly.
Let me bring wholeness to me, and we can have conversations like this
Right.
that open our understanding or open like possibilities, but doesn't need to have this like very like one way or the other, black and white.
Right.
Mm.
We talked about. We all have a purpose, and you were using the description of the body. The hand is meant to benefit the eye, and the eye is meant to
Mhm.
benefit the elbow, and none's better than the other. And we know that logically. It gets back down into that heart and gut that we have the problem, because the little kid goes, "Well, I'm an eye, so I'm not as good as an ear, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever." And then we definitely create that separation too. Of
Mm-hmm.
that's what I don't. When people ask the question, "Are you a believer?" I don't like that question, because we're all believers. It's what do you believe in,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and it's creating separation. And I'm like, that doesn't do any good.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't help.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
That's
Okay,
good.
I have one last question for you.
uh-huh.
I'm going to take it all the way back to the very beginning.
To the Perturbed or the very first session?
Nah, to this session. So
Okay.
you're talking about maybe not the complete beginning, but early on. You're talking about in your meditation finding the spot where you as a second grader took on a belief.
Mhm.
In our sessions that we've had,
Right.
we've had a lot of discussions lately with value
Mhm.
in the way that I see my value.
Right.
And so this is my question.
Mhm.
In your situation,
Right.
in my situation, can you bring healing without going back to that beginning spot?
I don't think you fully can.
So I'm wondering, like, because what you did
Mhm.
is change your belief that you took on at that point.
Right.
Can you change your belief? Can you bring love and life in without knowing exactly where it started?
I don't think fully.
Mm.
I think it's okay. You learned 1 + 1 is 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you repeated it and repeated it and repeated it and repeated it. What if it's not? You got to go back to the origin point, because you accepted it as truth at that point. I don't know how, because I think everything after that just confirms and revalidates the original belief.
Yeah.
I mean, if you find a way, let me know, because we'll save some steps.
Yeah, I think, the root of my question is I want there to be a way.
Right.
Because I've been in counseling or coaching for 10 years,
Right.
dealing with, okay, find the lie, go back to the root. What age did this happen? And bring Jesus in, or just bring a
Right.
different belief system into
Right.
that. And there's something in me that wants there to be a faster way,
Sure.
because it is
Why do you want there to be a faster way? You're wanting to get somewhere quicker than you already are?
maybe, but also I think in an optimal function, it's things happen at a quicker speed. And
Okay.
so, like, I listen to a teacher a lot who talks about, like, when he first started meditating, he would meditate for sometimes 8 hours a day.
Right.
And then he started doing an hour a day.
Right.
And then he started like learning like ways to tune into himself faster,
Right.
so that now he can do it 20 minutes 3 days a week, and he can teach people how to do it at that pace because he's gone through that and learned to do it.
Right.
And so there's part of me that thinks, okay, if we really get this wholeness down, there have to be hacks and shortcuts that we can help get people to the roots faster than taking a lifetime to sit down and process it.
Right.
I think that's my thought. If you look at the life of Yeshua, when he brought healing, it was almost always instantaneous,
Right.
whether it was physical, emotional, mental, like whatever the issue was. And so what did he understand about the body, about the emotions, about the soul, about what did he understand about that? Because there's, you get the argument of, well, he was God, he just did it. I think he understood what was going on. And I think that's what helped him navigate there at a faster pace. And I think there's just something in me that doesn't want to settle for, well, just keep at it. Eventually you'll get there. Like there's an unrest in me that says, no, there has to be a way to help people get there, to get there quicker. Because, and this is one of the reasons we were talking about that when Adam was co-creating, it was Adam.
Right.
And so when he had the intention to co-create, there were no other energies, there were no other opinions, there were no other counter things to hinder that. And now when we want to co-create, there's 8 billion other energies influencing that co-creation.
Right.
If we can help bring society to a place of wholeness quicker, I believe we can bring the world back into a place of restoration faster.
Okay. So I have a couple of thoughts in regards to that. Yes, from the perspective, use the analogy or the story of the guy that learned to meditate faster.
Mm-hmm.
He basically got to a certain point quicker.
Mm-hmm.
He still was getting to a point.
Right.
So I think you have to get to the origin of the belief.
Mm.
Now, can we learn to get there faster? Yeah, I believe so. I think even going into this, understanding the complexity and going, what's the exact right path? We can get there faster. Yeah, I believe that's possible. On the flip side of that, what I'm learning is going, why am I in such a rush?
Mm.
What is it I'm really after? Am I just seeking to get my pain to go away quicker?
Mm.
Even if we're seeking to create unity and wholeness of the body, a restoration, you're never going to get ahead of where God is.
Right.
So I think that's where I want to have the most efficient and in tune, because I think sometimes we can seek to speed the process up and you miss something God wanted for you there.
Mm.
So I think it's finding that balance. Okay. So my son and I were talking about something. My youngest son is very much like me, and maybe even deeper. Yeah. One of the things we were talking about is when you're young, you're attracted to your opposite. As you get older, you're attracted to your same. We were talking about the difference between like the magnetic force that opposite poles attract. And yet also the concept of manifestation is you manifest in your life the same. So like attracts like. So I'm like, how come both those exist? And I was looking something up. You have a centripetal and a centrifugal force. One is what gravity is, a centripetal that it pulls it towards, and centrifugal is a speed that pushes it away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this balance of Goldilocks, not too fast, not too slow. It's finding that just right spot. To me, that's where God exists. Does that make sense? So
At some level.
It doesn't give you the answer you want.
Right.
No, because I want it now.
Yeah.
I mean, I never see that in my office when people want answers now.
Right.
No?
Not me either.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't use sarcasm either. So part of the purpose we each go through what we're going through is to help the next person do it faster. It's taken me 58 years to get to where I am. And there's times where I'm like, I wish I could have known this in my 20s. Why? That wasn't my purpose. That's not, it doesn't really matter because I am where I am. And I just want to be more and more in line with the song God's singing, for lack of a better term, because that's the most pure, peaceful, joyful, loving place you can ever be. I mean, if you go back to that knowledge of good and evil, you stepped out of this song because you thought there was a better song.
Right.
And I've wondered this. I've even at times prayed, I don't want to have any more knowledge of evil. I haven't figured out how to not act on it. So I want that. I don't want that knowledge. Now I wonder if part of the point of the purpose is to be able to have the knowledge and act as God would act. That you know that by choice you're literally choosing, not just because there isn't a choice, because there is a choice and you still choose that which is good.
In essence, what did it do for them to be like God and having the knowledge of both? Before they had that, they were in the garden, everything was free to them, and God gave them the rule.
Right.
After they ate of that, they became the ruler of the deciding line of what was good and what was evil, instead of allowing God to have that almost like parenting role of showing them that. And we've talked about the concept of, I'm not sure they were never supposed to eat of it. I think that they ate of it at an immature place, because I think ultimately what would a good parent do? A good parent would give rules, would give structure to help you grow up so that one day you can take that role. And I have to think possibly that is what God intended in the garden, was to allow them to mature, allow them to grow, so that then they could take on that role like he did as well. And so I sometimes wonder, like, was it that they were never, ever, ever, ever supposed to eat of it, and God was always supposed to be that? Possibly. That's definitely that's a possibility. Or was it that they just ate of it before they were mature enough to handle what would come from that?
So
I don't know.
they ate it from a fear-based place as opposed to a faith-based place.
Yeah, well, and like we talked about, they ate it because that question came in that made them think, oh, maybe there is something wrong. Maybe I'm not who I'm supposed to be. And so, yeah, I think they ate it from a fear-based place.
So can there be more than one God?
I think anything can be a God that you put in that place.
Right. I thought about it from the perspective of if there's two gods and they disagree, then who wins?
Mhm.
And I think that's the real issue of I don't know. I think there's an order or there can only be one conductor.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
Now,
if we're
can
talking about a
learn to
symphony, yeah.
Right. Can then you learn to go conduct your own symphony?
Mm.
I don't know. That's kind of getting into what the Mormon concept.
Mm.
So I don't know.
Interesting.
You wanted to go deep. We went deep.
We
huh?
went deep.
Oh, did I get all my questions answered? What is wealth?
What is wealth?
It's constantly being redefined
Right.
for us, right?
Right. Because that's kind of the main thing you're after here in this
Mhm.
podcast.
To me, wealth is the possession of value, maybe even the abundance of possession of value.
Okay.
But then you would have to ask what is valuable, and that would change from person to person, right? But in the podcast, when we ask this, like in the premise within this, we're looking at kingdom.
Okay.
What holds value in the kingdom?
Okay.
Which, as we discussed earlier, is kind of everything.
Right.
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 Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to answer that question. And I'm not exactly sure, what's real. I know, there's what's often referred to as the law of first mention, where does something first happen?
Right.
The first time in the Bible that someone is called wealthy is Abraham. And it says he was wealthy in animals and gold and land.
Right.
And so it's defining it as these very tangible things. But I tend to think that is only a piece of what wealth really is. I think relationships are wealth. I think just this conversation, sharing story is wealth. I think family is wealth. I think health is a form of wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tend to think that it's a very encompassing thing. And sometimes we only look at an aspect of it. Yeah. I don't know that I have a one sentence phrase of this is what wealth is. In some regard, it's opportunity.
Right. So you said you were talking about value. Are you valuable?
I'm working on thinking I'm valuable.
Well, I think if you don't think you are valuable, how can you see anything else as valuable?
Mm.
And it's not an ego thing. It's seeing yourself as God sees you.
I was just listening to a conversation these people were having on this topic because it was addressing how, as a physician,
Right.
you prescribe people these remedies.
Mm-hmm.
And how often do you see people consistently take it every single time you prescribe it? Is it all the time? Is it?
Oh yeah. Everybody complies with everything that I ever said.
Exactly.
No.
And then you have people who have pets.
Right.
And statistically, if your pet is sick and their vet prescribes
Right.
a medication, statistically, a person is more likely to be consistent in applying that remedy to that animal than they will be to do the same thing for themselves. And I think that that's a really intriguing picture of value. And kind of the conversation we've been having this whole time is those lies, those thoughts, those processes that you've picked up that have not, I'm not at all saying your pet isn't valuable, but your pet needs you to be whole and healthy. And so like, I think it's just a really intriguing thing to look at. Like, what is value, and why as society do we tend to, why is it easier for us to value something else more than ourselves?
I think the answer is, what do you receive from that pet? Unconditional love. What do you receive from yourself? Conditional love.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm.
How do you give yourself unconditional love?
I think it's already there. I think it's what it's buried under. I mean, that's the whole point, is it's not to generate it, it's to get stuff out of the way. So my story I shared, I'll tell you, because this kind of speaks to this value aspect. I was at my grandparents' house. It was one of my aunts or uncles, and I'm second or third grade. You know, who do you like? Who do you like? Who do you like?
Mm-hmm.
I liked this girl at our church at that time, and they were a wealthy family. And again, I don't know if this was said or not said.
Mm-hmm.
It's my concept of what occurred. Oh, well, they're wealthy. She's basically, you're not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And from that moment, I'm like, oh, I don't have as much value because we don't have as much money.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed the way I interacted with all girls from that point. It changed the way I thought about money from that point. I can still feel a little bit of it today. And I'm like, yeah, that's when I felt unvaluable or less valuable.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I know it's not true in my head. I know it's not true in my heart. I haven't fully got it to my gut.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming. So until then, I don't think I thought that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a concept of that.
And it gets really interesting or weird because some of those things occur like pre-consciousness. I think we've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I do know from my history, I was firstborn not only in my family, but in this, my mom was one of 13. So when I was born, I was a very, very big deal.
Mm.
And my brother came along a year later. He had mental handicap challenges, and all of a sudden I think a lot of the attention went away. And I think my brain sought to explain why that happened. And I think most of my life I kept looking for that feeling of being special.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wasn't consciously aware of that. I can't go back into that memory. I don't know. It's weird because I can almost feel it, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So, and it's not an issue when most people do the work, they go back and there's blame. Well, you did this and you did that. That's not the point. The point is just understanding the circumstances that have brought you to this point and go, okay, I've interpreted them in a certain way. How do I change that? Because even if in my story of the, the girl that I liked that had more, their family had more money, even if that was said, that doesn't make it true, which we know that logically. It's helping that inner child to go, that's just your opinion. It's okay. I don't agree with you.
I like what you said about the unconditional love already being part of you, because then it's not necessarily a having to find a way to bring unconditional love to that little kid, but just maybe shifting his focus to the love that's already there. And that to me feels like a simpler thing.
Right. I think it's funny that we even have to put the unconditional in front of it. And I know love has got multiple different versions.
Yeah.
I don't think there is any, if it's love, there is no condition. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really powerful linguistic thing. I mean, we've talked about just, in the Bible, there's many, many different words that are used for what we translate all
Right.
as love. And so in English, we're so limited by this word because it holds value from everything to I love water to I love my fiance. Like it holds that and everything in between. And so it's such a nuanced word.
Right.
And so I think that's interesting. I mean, just at the root of it, God is love. There is no condition in his love. He just loves. He just is love. And he created us in his image. So somewhere at the root of it, we are love. We are just love. And it's society, it's our parents, it's ourselves, it's our DNA that puts conditions on what that is.
All right. Kind of ties back into the wordplay concepts we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember talking about mathematics? God is math as a mathematician. So the phrase God is love, you can substitute equal or substitute is for equal. So if God equals love, love equals God. That goes both ways. So love is God.
Yeah. That's good.
It's really good. Okay, well, we could have this conversation
For another, 3 hours?
3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. I'm not quite sure. 30 years. But for now, let's wrap it up. We'll have to plan another either episode or just conversation. Because it's also an option.
I'll leave that up to you guys.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for being on.
You're very welcome. It's
This
been
has
my pleasure.
been so good.
Good.
And I have lots to chew on.
Good.
And that's always what I'm like longing for out of any conversation. Like, let's just spur one another on, right? Like, move forward. So I love that. That's
the concept of when we can have healthy dialogue. It's like, wow, I never thought about it from that perspective, or wow, I hadn't learned that. That's the point. So that's why I like to listen to you guys' follow up on Thursday, because I'm like, well, that's interesting. Well, because from the last one, you're the one that said transformer. I'm like, I love that concept. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
It's mutual. Okay. Well, listeners, we'll see you again next time.
Thank you for sticking around. Listen for new episodes every Monday and Thursday. Find us on all social media platforms by searching for Market Mystics. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. Visit upperroomcd.com where you can find more information about the hosts, projects, and guests. Go deeper by booking a coaching appointment focused on redefining identity and wealth in your life. See you next time.